Backend development is not all about creating APIs. It's not like you just plug your express.js and then you have your app.get, app.put, app.patch, app.delete, app.post, app.whatever, and then you have your full-fledged backend application. No, there are more responsibilities that can be associated with backend development than just this. I also shared a similar video for front-end development where I shared responsibilities that can be associated with front-end developers. I would leave a link to that video in the video description so you can definitely check it out. In this video, I'll be sharing a non-exhaustive list of 6 responsibilities on a general basis that can be associated with backend developers. Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Dillion, and on my space I share my experiences in my technical career and also in my life. If you'd love to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. Like I said in this video, I'll be sharing a non-exhaustive list of 6 responsibilities that can be associated with backend development. So let's start from the first item, which is the very obvious one: creating APIs. Backend developers are responsible for creating APIs on the backend server, which the front-end developers can work with in order to exchange information between the client and the server. You can do this with various tools from Node.js to Python to Go. There are several of them. But it doesn't just stop at creating APIs. There are more responsibilities, which brings me to the number 2 item: managing these APIs in industry standard ways. For simple backend applications, you can just create a simple API that a client would send requests to, and whatever data comes to that API is stored in the database. But this is not the same for industry or company standards for applications. For these APIs to be used correctly, for them to work accurately, there are so many things that are checked in the process. One of the things that can be checked is authentication. The client that is sending this data, are they authenticated? Do they have the right credentials to access this API? Such things are checked. Apart from authentication, you also have authorization. So even if their credentials are correct, they're authenticated, are they authorized to do what they are trying to do? For example, a free user may not be able to do a certain action that is only allowed for premium users. Also, the data that is sent to that API has to be checked. It has to be validated. And the front-end person may have already done some validation checks, ensuring that the inputs like the email or the phone number, they're in the right format. But the back-end person also has to ensure that these things are checked so that the application does not break down in the process. And apart from checking that the data is validated, the back-end person also has to check that this data is not harmful, this data is secured. Because if checks like this do not exist, fraudulent users can send manipulative data to the backend, and that can cause a lot of chaos. So it is the responsibility of the backend person to not just create APIs, but to also manage these APIs in industry standard ways, in professional knowledge, to ensure that what is coming in is secured and it is good to go. The third responsibility that can be associated with the backend development is ensuring the efficiency and the speed of backend servers. Efficiency here is performance, and of course with speed, you want to ensure that the response time of a backend server to request is very low. It's not like a user has to wait for a long amount of time. In a simple application where maybe a maximum of 10 or 20 requests are coming in at the same time to a backend server, in such cases there is not a lot of work that needs to be done in improving the performance, because the backend server would be able to respond to these 20 requests at the same time in very few seconds or milliseconds. But in an application where maybe a number of 1,000, 2,000 or even 10,000 requests are coming in at the same time, you wouldn't want a case where one user has to wait for 5 seconds to get a response and another user has to wait for 10 seconds to get a response. You want to ensure that the system is efficient enough and also fast enough to respond to this number of people. And backend developers can do this using several techniques. A few of them can be load balancing, caching techniques, or they could also write algorithms to ensure that the logic for the process of responding to that request doesn't take longer than it should. The fourth responsibility that can be associated with backend development is also writing tests. Writing tests here is not the simple expect 1 + 1 = 2. No. Tests here are advanced. They'll usually involve things like mock data to ensure ensure that an API that was defined is working as it should, it's returning the right response, it's returning the right errors when the data is not correct, it is doing the right thing basically. The fifth responsibility is troubleshooting backend problems. There are some problems that can be easily identifiable, with one API that is misbehaving. But there are some other problems where a server can be down or something breaks, a user sends in some data that you didn't expect. It could be different scenarios of errors. The backend developer will also be responsible for troubleshooting these problems immediately for the server to be back up as soon as possible. And the last responsibility, which is the sixth one, is managing databases, ensuring that the right model for storing data is used. The reason why the right model is important is because if you use a model that involves so many duplication or maybe a longer process to access a specific data, that can also result in a lower efficient backend application. So the backend developer has to use the right models, the right structure for data, also use the right systems, also use the right settings, the right configurations, basically managing these databases in an efficient manner. This is a non-exhaustive list of just 6 items. I know there are still many more responsibilities for backend developers. So if you're building a simple application, you can just do your simple API, do your simple validations, and that's it. For example, me, when I'm working on a side project and I need to have a backend environment, I just plug express.js, create my APIs, plug a MongoDB database, and I am good to go. And if you look at backend development like this, you think it's easy, but no, there are the advanced parts of it. An example is caching. As simple as caching may sound, it can also be an advanced technique depending on the tool, framework, or technology. It may not be so easy to implement as you think it would be. So with backend development, there are several responsibilities. The summary of all the things that I've shared here is performance, speed, and security. These things have to be in check to ensure that an application doesn't break down and everything is fully functional. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Also subscribe so you can see more similar videos like this. And you can also check out my video on the responsibilities of front-end developers. Peace.